Also, like the idea of Dante's Inferno and this idea of like journeying into hell, I think also it's this sort of metaphor. It's a metaphor in a way, for this. I don't mean this like overall, because obviously there's more to it, and I don't want to like nullify it or dumb it down in any way, because I feel like there's a lot more to it. But when I'm talking about the idea of darkness, sometimes I feel like sometimes that's a metaphor for sadness and for depression almost. And I feel like as a society, we're so afraid of those things. We drug ourselves up to the eyeballs when we feel depressed, but that's a natural part of human existence. And until we learn how to deal with it and come out the other side of it, we're always going to fear it. But actually, it's in those moments of like deep despair and occasionally suffering that we find out so much more about ourselves, so much more about who we are, and that it's okay. I've had countless conversations with friends of mine about like the first time we encountered that bottomless nothingness. And as I'm going along in this musical journey, I get to a point where I'm trying to describe the eternal blackness. And like, how do you describe nothing? Like, how do you describe nothing? There's that side to it too. Yeah.
Well, that's definitely
I mean, I think like I've certainly recognized parts of my behavior in my life that have prevented me from asking questions, which therefore prevent me from working. Like I can like I can remember this came up so recently, so I'm going to talk about it anyway. But I can remember when I was a kid, my art teacher didn't like me very much, and he said to me, well, no, actually, that's not true. Already, I'm victimizing myself. But like, my art teacher said, "You're not learning anything. Leave the class." But the reason I savage. But the reason I wasn't learning anything is because of the fact that I was too afraid to ask the question, because I didn't know what was going on. Like I didn't know how to do certain things. And that prevented me from like working harder or from being able to like achieve the goal that I needed to achieve. So like I find that like just kind of asking the question if I'm struggling with something, just going, how do I do this? Like how do I do this? Or asking somebody else for help is really important. But when it comes to like procrastinating, I try not to procrastinate. I if I find myself doing something mindlessly, I tend to be like, you're doing something mindlessly. Like,
yeah.
let's go and focus our attention on something else, whether it just be reading a book or or writing or meditating or doing something. Just having things to do is important. So this is a book that I read every morning. It's called The Promise of a New Day, and it's a book of daily meditations, and it helps me to kind of set my intention for the day. So this is March 26th, and it's done by date. March 26th. When you have become willing to hide nothing, you will not only be willing to enter into communion, but will also understand peace and joy. Anonymous. Keeping secrets is synonymous with keeping stuck. Our human potential is stifled by our stuffed feelings, attitudes, and ideas. Conversely, the more we allow others to really know us, the greater will be our opportunities for growth and happiness. Our secrets burden us. The choice to shield our inner selves from others is ours to make. Risking vulnerability takes strength and a great deal of courage. We can never be certain that our audience won't betray us. However, we can be certain that words and thoughts hidden will haunt us. The gift of total honesty and openness is profound intimacy. It's this gift that makes possible a level of friendship that dispels self-doubts, that gives rise to a euphoria that turns all situations into opportunities for greater happiness. And the meditation for today is, I may be tempted to keep some secrets today. I will remember that sharing them will relieve me of a burden that weighs me down. What do you think about that, Sam?
I think it's great. Is this the same book that we used to have when we were starting recording?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a life book for me. Yes, it's the very same.
Yeah, it's a great one. So when we were recording, well, at least I think when we just started recording this album, we'd read from this every single day, kind of before starting our stuff, and kind of talk to each other about it and discuss it. And it was, I don't know, it was really, really helpful for me, and I think helpful for us, just to like, I don't know, I think when you go into those places and, you know, we are writing together, it's so important to allow yourself to be vulnerable to each other. And to not kind of go in, I mean, you know, we're five dudes and there can be bravado and whatever, but to let go of that is really important, especially if you're making stuff. So yeah, it really helps me, and it, you know, just allows me to kind of take a moment to think about it and breathe and let go of shit. And
yeah, letting go. That's it. That is a huge part. I think there's going to be a lot of people here today, and I certainly see it when we go on tour and we talk to all these people who struggle a lot with anxiety and with fear. You know, I think for me, when I've gone through my path and I've gone through my journey, and even now, even today, a lot of my like negative behavior comes out through a fear. And what I can do to like combat that fear is I can try to like maintain a level of control over life, over situations, over other people. And that only like continues to kind of breed the fear. And you mentioned the words like letting go, and that is such an important practice for me, in the kind of, I suppose, in the journey of like of recovery, and on the journey of kind of getting back to my like true self. You know, the act of letting go for me is a very spiritual act. I have to I let go to a higher power, to something that is greater than myself, because hey, listen, like we all have an ego, right? And mine can be like, hey, you got this, man, like you can do this just by yourself. And that's kind of nonsense. Like that doesn't work for me. I have to let go to kind of the universe and to this like ever expansive love. And this passage on vulnerability that we just read here, you know, vulnerability is really the only thing that will connect us. It's the only thing that will bring us closer together. We've kind of lived in this world for so long where we've been told that like we have to be successful, like financially successful. We have to have like a great job. We have to have this, we have to have that. And the idea of vulnerability has like really been like pushed to one side. It's become like a dirty word. And even now, like if you say it, see how it makes you feel. Like vulnerability, God, that's scary. Like that's scary. I don't want somebody to know the truth about me, because oh my God, if somebody knows the truth about me, then they're going to judge me, and then blah 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 blah. But the fact of the matter is that we all have vulnerability, and it's the only thing that brings us closer together. When I'm talking to somebody and they're talking to me about like some business stuff, and they're talking to me about like, I don't know, just something that's not like particularly real, I'm so disinterested. Like I'm just like, oh man, like where's the truth? Like where's the truth here? Like where's the reality of the situation? Who are you and who am I? And that I believe is the only thing that kind of like will connect us, and that will bring us closer together as a society. I really do believe. And I think that you know, of course, the situation that we currently find ourselves in with this awful virus, and you know, the fact that it's hurting so many people is appalling. But also at the same time, I see this as an opportunity for us to really reevaluate our priorities as a species. Like, our priorities for so long have been to kind of, for greed and for desire, for man's like fallible desire, humans, sorry, fallible desire for like success. You know, build this, take this, have this, I want this, I'm going to be at the top of the pile, power, 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 and I don't give a fuck about anybody else. I don't give a fuck about anybody else. And like, now we've kind of reached this like this point where I believe that people are starting to wake up to the realization of the fact that that has not served us. Like, that doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve us spiritually. It doesn't serve the world in which we live. Like, the world in which we live, we know is dying. And why is it dying? Because of us. Like, it's dying because of us. And we need to stop everything and really reevaluate, like, how we want to live and how we choose to live. And that requires like an immense deal of courage and of strength from all of us to be vulnerable, to go, hey, look, listen, like, I'm feeling like this, or I'm feeling guilty about this, or I feel shame about this. And for us to sit there and identify with the other person and go, hey, look, it's okay, because I've felt those things too. Like, on my journey of recovery, there is a thing that we have to do where I make amends. I make amends to people who I need to apologize for and apologize to in my life. And I had to do that the other day. I had to make an amends for something that happened over 10 years ago. Like, over 10 years ago, but it had been weighing me down. I hadn't accepted my part in what happened. And so I needed to put my hand up and go, hey, look, listen, I'm so sorry. Like, I did this and I feel terrible about it, and it had nothing to do with you, and I'm really, 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 really sorry. And we all need to do that, because we all can be like burdened by these like guilts and by these shames and by these fears. And like, until we realize that we're fallible and that we have these like desires that sometimes completely overwhelm us, we're never going to be free of them. So we need to wake up to ourselves, first of all, in order to be free. And it's important that I sit here and I become vulnerable with you, my brother, and with other people in this chat, all the beautiful people here, in order for that to like continue to grow.
Yeah. And to cultivate, I think, a space in which other people can be the same. You know, like, you have to encourage that kind of thinking, and I think that kind of being, in order to have other people around you, because it's, I don't know, like vulnerability and like invulnerability can be infectious. And if you meet someone that's really like guarded and really like not giving you anything, like, it can be so difficult to get anywhere. And so I think, you know, to even begin to have these conversations, you know, as you say, it is important, you know, to do that and to take those steps to do it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And there is a whole world out there. Like, I've been doing these poems recently for the last few months, and thank you to everybody who's on here, who, if any of you have ordered a poem and have received it, thank you so much. It just goes to show that, like, we all feel like that. Every single person can go, I don't know who I am. But the thing is that, like, we can kind of let go of the idea of who we are. Like, I can let go of the idea that I am Jamie, a person. Well, I am a person, but like, the name that I was given, like, that's just a name. It doesn't define me. My experience in life doesn't define me. The fact that I participated in the Twilight Saga doesn't define me. It's not who I am. Like, who I am is somebody who, like, deeply, truly loves people. And I think that we're all that. Like, we all have that inside of us. We just need to let go of the idea of ourselves, I think, a little bit. I was reading I'm going to open up my book. I hope I've put it in the right place. I don't know. Yes, fantastic. So I bought this book by a guy called Eckhart Tolle, who has written a book called The Power of Now. And this was a passage that came up yesterday, which is kind of what I was musing on just then. Like, he says, is it possible to let go of the belief you should need to know who you are? In other words, can you cease looking to conceptual definitions to give you a sense of self? Can you cease looking to thought for an identity? The more you make your thoughts into identity, the more cut off you are from the spiritual dimension within yourself. Defining yourself through thought is limiting yourself. When you fully accept that you don't know, you actually enter a state of peace and clarity that is closer to who you really are than who you thought you could ever be. It's powerful shit. That's powerful shit, man.
Love that from Eckhart.
Yeah, man. And that goes back to the idea of letting go.
Mm.
You know, like, the idea of letting go will be the thing that brings us all closer together, ultimately. I think I've probably spoken enough now. Should we open up the floor to some questions?
Yeah, for sure.
When I meditate, I've had moments of like complete bliss where I've just completely let go of thoughts, and my thoughts just like, they just drift away. Meditation in general starts with the breathing exercise. You know, it starts with focusing on the breath. Beautiful, lovely. And bring yourself back to your breath. Don't like kind of chastise yourself for having thoughts. It's natural. You're going to have thoughts. There's going to be parts of you that are sometimes going to battle. I had a meditation yesterday. This is a whole shitload of truth. I had a meditation yesterday where I was lying down, and the battle was going on because it's just been a bit crazy, and I think this had been asked of me, and I'm doing something for calm tomorrow, and all of a sudden there's these fears coming out, and blah, blah, blah. Everything kind of just builds into this massive like fuck. And I was lying down and I was meditating and I was letting go, and then this voice on the right hand side of my brain was going, you don't deserve it, you're not worthy, you're not worth it, like, this is ridiculous, fuck you. And I was like, what? Like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, that thought being there is so like unnecessary, and it could be my ego saying, you've built yourself up to be so amazing, you don't need to let go, like, I'm here, it's all right, like, don't worry about this is a load of old bollocks. But like, the fact that the thought came up, I was like, I actually was able to kind of recognize it as a thought. And then,
so yeah, mental health, right, serious chat. Okay, there's a lot of beautiful young people in the audience. Hello, by the way. There's a lot of beautiful young people in the audience, and I remember when I was young, I felt like I could do anything. I felt like the world was my oyster. I felt like I could climb the highest tree, like I could fucking fly in the clouds. But as I got older, and as I entered into this world that seems to be so full of hatred and division, I felt very oppressed and I felt very suppressed, and I tried everything I could to take myself away from my reality, because I wasn't allowing myself to feel. I wasn't talking about how I felt inside. I wasn't talking about my shame, my guilt, my pain, my hurt. I bottled it all up, and it fucking ruined me, man. It fucking ruined me. And one thing that I want to try and tell everybody is that talking about your feelings is not a crime. It's okay to turn to somebody, and it's okay to say, hey, look, listen, today I don't feel like getting out of bed. Today I hate myself. Today I just want to lie under the covers. We live in a society that tells us that that's weak, but that's not true. Because it's my belief that by sharing what we have inside of us, all of us, every single person in this room and every single person in the outside world, we'll create a community of people that really do care about each other, and that we will survive. So ladies and gentlemen, I implore you to go out there into the world with love in your heart, with kindness in your eyes, and be honest, and don't be afraid of being vulnerable, because I promise you, if you do that, everything that you feel, that you hate about yourself, will disappear, because you are not the only person that feels like that. And if you've heard our latest single, It Gets Better, that's what this shit is all about. Letting go of that shit.
Fridge, which is like a wellness, she has her wellness like to-do list, which is so amazing, and it's something that I need to do as well, and I think it would be great for everyone, really. I know that I should have that, because like I have a certain like routine that I need to do, you know, like I have certain practices that I need to maintain, and those are like a bare minimum for me, and then I need to do other things on top. But I think sometimes, being the kind of person that I am, like I can just forget to do them, or I can sort of start to self-justify, you know, where I'm like, oh, I don't need to do this, it's fine. And 3 days later, I'm behaving like a total turd. And I'm going like, why am I behaving like such a turd? And I look back and I'm like, oh, because I'm not doing the things that I know that I need to be doing. Like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing my reading. If I'm not doing my reading in the morning, well, then I've already started the day wrong. If I'm not like setting my goals and my intentions for the day, if I'm not doing my meditation, if I'm not doing my breathing exercises, and anything else that I do around that and on top of that is going to be good. And like I introduced yesterday into my life like a new practice, which I really should have been doing for quite some time now, but I don't know why. I think I just kind of avoided it. But it's like a sort of like daily, at the end of the day, like a daily check-in, like good things and bad things, you know, like we used to do it on tour, which is like highs and lows, you know, like what's been the best thing about today, what's the worst thing about today. And it's kind of like it's kind of like that, but it's more like personal. It's a lot more, where have I sort of been selfish, and where have my like character defects come into play, and and what can I do to change those things, you know. It's called a daily inventory, but you know, it's like, if I've been angry, which we can all be angry, what can I replace that with? Well, I can replace that with calm. And if I am sloth and lazy, I can replace that with taking action, you know. And it's just about kind of like being constantly reminded, I think, of myself and what I'm doing, rather than, because self-justification is so easy. Like it's so
just letting it slip.
Yeah.
Just not you know, because it's an inconvenience to think about it in some ways. Or
Yeah, exactly. So that's been good, but I think, you know, hers was on the fridge, which I really liked. It was the first thing that I saw this morning when I woke up to make coffee. It was on the fridge, and I was like, damn, like that's great. You know, like I've woken up and I've seen that for the first time, and you know, it's the first thing that I've seen, and that's amazing. I love it. So that's my new thing for the day. Yeah. And also, what else have I done this week? I've shown you a lot, but I'm going to talk about it here because I'm very, very proud of it. I've started growing my own plants, ladies and gentlemen. I have started growing vegetables. I've started growing vegetables. I've started growing tomatoes, and I've started growing leeks, and I've started growing spring onions. Which are amazing. And I learned a technique which I showed you this morning, but I'm going to share it here because I think it's very, very important. So if you have a leek, or if you have a spring onion and you use it, say in a soup, it's turning into Gardener's World here. Welcome to Counterfeit Gardener's World. If you have a leek or a spring onion that you've used, and you chop it to just above the white bit, where the roots grow, you can put that white bit into a glass of water, and it will regrow, and you will have used some of the leek or the spring onion, and then you will regrow another leek or another spring onion, and it's beautiful. And the spring onions have already started sprouting. They're already growing again. They should be at full whack. I don't know what the term is. They should be at full whack within about 3 weeks, which is amazing. How did I deal with my first real heartbreak? Badly. is the answer. I dealt with it badly. It was incredibly painful. There are no two ways about it. It was incredibly painful, and it took a long time to heal from. It took a long time to heal from. There is so much wrapped up in that experience for me, you know, because it's not just, you're not just dealing with, like, or at least I wasn't just dealing with the very act of what had happened. You know, that's the healthy way to do it, is to deal with the act of what's happened. You go, okay, that's happened, cool. You know, I get it, that's you, I'm off. But what happens is, like, and if you're like as emotional as I am, or as, like, you know, I don't know, if you're anything like me, then, you know, it affects like things like resentment comes into it, and pain, and your own perception of love. And then if you let that resentment build, then it just gets into this place where it just goes like completely nuts, and you end up going over and over and over and over in it, you know, around your head. And then the resentment builds into a place where you're like, oh, I don't feel worthy, and then you're fucked, you know. And I had to go all of that. Like, I literally had to go through every single process of that. I did not accept the situation for what it was immediately. I could not accept the situation for what it was immediately, because it was the first time that I'd ever felt something like that, you know. I've since learned that, like, later on in life, like, that like deep sense of, like, love and connection, like, you know, it exists everywhere. It exists everywhere. It's in everything. But I dealt with it badly. But I was very, very fortunate enough to have a really, really good group of friends around me who helped me through it. Here I am today. I live to tell the tale.
I live to tell the tale. Amazing. Mine, incredibly melodramatically, I seem to recall. I think there was a lot of storming off. There was a lot of playing a lot of loud music out of my window. A lot of, you know, drawing. A lot of, like, just whiling out and you know, acting out on my heartbreak through, like, what I thought was incredibly emotional at the time, and, you know, writing letters that would never get sent, things like that.
That sounds incredibly healthy. Those are like things that one learns in therapy. That's a very healthy way of dealing with it.
It was like, what's that scene? Is it in Footloose where he goes off into the woods and, like, dances? Yeah,
probably.
I think it's Footloose. It was like
Sweeney Todd. I don't know any of them.
It was like akin to that scene, but like extended over probably like a couple of months of that scene, you know, made it into my life. And then it took a while though, like, as you said, you know, it was like, there are so many different stages of it, especially for the first time you're experiencing it. And it's never really the same. But yeah, it was, I mean, yeah, my one true love has always been drum and bass, and that'll always remain, but no, I'm joking. Yeah, it's like every time it's going to be completely different, and it's awful, and it takes so long, and there are so many phases behind it. But then you'll see each other like 5 years down the line, and you can laugh about it, and you can, you know, hopefully, if you that was my experience anyway, and I was really grateful for that. And it wasn't time. I never saw it as time wasted or anything like that. So yeah, kind of healthy. Yeah.
I don't think I ever would look back on any like part of my life and think, oh, that's time wasted. Like, there's always a lesson to be learned in it. I think that's very healthy.
And that really helps in those processes. I think when you can realize that, I think that's really healthy to deal with heartbreak, I think.
Yeah, totally. And I think also just like being able to like understand that it's somebody else's choice, like it's like, and also like that one's own self-worth does not rely on the acceptance of another individual. Like,
Yeah.
They want to move on for the sake of themselves, and that's fine. That's what you want to do. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. It's been amazing. Yeah. That's what I'd say if you and I are breaking up. It's not me, Sam. It's you.
It's not me. You're breaking up with me.
I really like that.
It's a good one.
It's great. I read a passage yesterday in my book, in the book that I was talking in my book the book that I wrote. In the book Fear by Thich Nhat Hanh. I think that's how you pronounce it. If I mispronounce that, well then I'm sorry. Which was about seeing ourselves in the other person that we're talking to, and in the other person that we're communicating with, and through that comes like a deeper level of understanding, and through that comes a deeper level of kindness and of compassion. I think it's sometimes it's very easy to say, oh well, make sure that you're checking in and listening, but there are so many times where, like, if anyone else out there is like me, or I can call somebody, but I can have like a million things going on in my mind, and I'm like, I know I should call this person, I know I should check in with them, and I know that I should be there for them, and I know that this is the right thing to do. But when I'm involved in the call with them, I'm sort of elsewhere. Like I can be in so many different places, and one of the things that helps me is to see myself in that other person, is to see like my experience through that person as well, and through that there comes a sort of like a compassion and an understanding, and that's really important for me. It's really, really important for me. It's really important for me that I stay connected. Like, it's really important that I stay connected to people throughout this time, throughout life, really.
Yeah.
It's deeply important that I stay connected to people. I can't be alone with my own head.
Yeah.
I can't be. I need to share. I need to talk. I need to be active. And I also need to be helping other people too, if I've been selfish and whatever, the counter to that is to show interest in other people, and showing interest is about listening, and it's about seeing myself sometimes in the other person. So that's what that means for me. Yeah, and I think it's important that if you are on your own as well, that you check in with people too. I mean, whether you be on your own or whether you be surrounded by other people,
Yeah.
It's important that we check in, because when we check in and we share and we talk and we're open and we're courageous and we're honest, we can see ourselves better, because we can see that the carnage of the thought process and of all those kind of things, that go on, and I certainly need that. I too spoke to Craig yesterday. For those watching, Craig is Counterfeit's tour manager, and we've been working with Craig since the very, very beginning of this band and of this artistic project. He came and photographed our very first show, and Craig and I hung out and we got along really well, and then he's ended up being our tour manager and our dear friend and our love, and just a human being that I think, honestly, we all can't live without each other, but somebody who is a very, very, very close person to us. Certainly a very, very close person to me. I love that human being very, very deeply, and we actually had a very interesting conversation yesterday about the nature of the creative, and to be creative, and what that means. I think often you and I talk about this, and I think we spoke about this last week, which is the intention. Like, what is the intention to be creative? Are you being creative, and are you do you want to be famous? Well, if you want to be famous, well then you're doing this for the wrong bloody reason. And we spoke yesterday about the two sides of life. Like, for me, I grew up in a environment that very much nurtured this side, which was like honesty, creativity, beauty, truth, the mere practice of being artistic for the sake of being artistic, for finding the deeper truth and the deeper meaning and the deeper connection to other people. And then there's this other side of it, which we've created in our society, which is like, you do that, and then there's this side, which is like money and like and wealth and material possession and sort of frilly shit that's not real, and where the focus lies should always be on this side, which is the side of the artistic value, the side of the search for the deeper meaning, the side of the search for emotional truth and connection and spirit, and the sort of spiritual nature of what it means to be here. We are, I believe, spiritual beings in human bodies. You know, we're not human bodies looking for spiritual connection. We're spiritual people looking, you know, here. But all of a sudden we live in a society that has this, and it's very easy for our focus to kind of be swayed to that because we're surrounded by it. Like, we're surrounded by it all the time. It's pushed upon us. It's like commerce is pushed upon us all the time. You need this to be this. You need this to be this. And if mine, yours, anyone's attention is put to this side and you start to nurture this side, there's going to be a point where you're going to get kicked like on your ass. Like life is going to be like, shut the fuck up, sit down, like sit the fuck down, reevaluate. And Craig and I were just talking about that yesterday, and that is something that's very, very important for me as a person, as an artist, to remember and to be in constant remembrance of, you know, I don't want these things. I don't need these things. I never have wanted them, and I never should want them. Yes, it is occasionally hard sometimes when, you know, when you're sort of scrolling through the internet looking at things to buy. You know, like I see so many, I do it, fuck me, I can do it. Like I can just scroll through the internet looking at things that I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy that and I can buy this and I can, but it's like, no, man, you don't fucking need that. Like, why are you distracting yourself from the importance of what this is? And that requires attention to self. And Craig and I were just talking about that yesterday. So that was beautiful. And that was important for me. I've just waffled for an hour.
No, I think it's important. I completely, like, you know, we spoke about this, and it's like, I completely agree. And it's like, your heart has to be at the basis of, especially with what we do. But I think of anyone, you know, take, for example, someone that sells fucking sponges or something. Like, if they don't love and, like, on another level, regardless of money, like, you know, sponges and doing that, then you're going to be able to tell that instantly. I think allow yourself the time and the space and the kind of mental energy to be in the moment. Like, I think allowing yourself is the first step as well. Sometimes breathing, sometimes it can literally just be just breathing, or just kind of thinking about, you know, if you realize, you know, just being self-aware and noting if you're not in the present, or if you're not there, or you're completely elsewhere. Learn to be able to kind of know when that's happening, and to be able to be like, I don't need to do this. Like, I don't need to be here. I'm just doing this for probably some other reason. Whether I want to procrastinate or do that, or, you know, Just be like, I don't necessarily need to do that.
Mm.
Am I doing it for the right reasons?
Conscious awareness, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I read a passage yesterday, which was saying that, so you know when a storm is happening outside and you look at a tree and you see the branches and the leaves of the top of the tree swaying about in the wind, they're like this, it's going everywhere. But then if you look at the trunk of the tree is still very sturdy and very strong. And there's a sense, there's a breathing that goes back to breathing, which is, if you breathe into your stomach, breathe into your abdomen, and recognize that your breath is there, and that you're strong, and take yourself away from the thoughts, then that brings you back to the present. It brings you back to the present moment, rather than acting out upon the immediate reaction to whatever it is that you're feeling.
Yeah.
You know, or the reaction to it. You know, something frightens you. Something frightens me. Generally, I'll respond in a way that's pretty negative. I'll push it away rather than going, oh, I'm a bit frightened by that. a bit frightened, and then being able to talk about that, rather than you say something that scares me because of whatever reason, and me trying to manage that situation, respond to that situation with my thoughts and blah blah blah. All of a sudden I'm trying to fucking manipulate things, and actually I can just keep it in the breath. So that would be my tip to stay present, would be to breathe, keep it in the breath, bring it back down. It actually said that remaining in the head can be dangerous. Danger. Fear language. Right, next question. Do you regret something which you've done? Whatever you've done in life was the only thing that you could do at that time. Whilst it may not have been the correct thing to do, it was the only thing that you could do at that time. So forgive yourself.
Our mental health, the thing that keeps us going, our brains, right? I don't know how old most of you are in this room, but I'm a little bit older now, okay? And I know that as I've gotten older, the world has put immense pressure on me to perform, to succeed, to be a person that sometimes I may not necessarily want to be. And it does that to us, society does that to us, and it puts pressure on our brains. And it can make us think terrible, terrible, terrible things about ourselves. We all have shit going on inside of us. Every single person in this room has something that they need to talk about. And if it wasn't for the help of other people and communicating with other people, I'd still be a drug addict and I'd still be an alcoholic, right? And the one thing that I've learned is that in time, if you talk about things and if you share things and if you're open with yourself and with your feelings, things get better. And if you've heard on your single, It Gets Better, that's what this shit's all about. So what we're going to do here this evening is we're going to look after one another. We're going to go out into the world, we're going to be honest with ourselves, we're going to ask how other people are, and we're going to identify with them. We're going to say, I know how that feels because I felt that too, rather than go, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, holy shit. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Because we all can feel the same things. While our experiences are different, pain, suffering, guilt, shame, anger, we all share them, and it's okay to talk about them, I promise you. So let's go out into the world this evening, let's spread some love, let's spread some joy. This song is called It Gets Better, and it's for you guys.
What would you say to anyone who is thinking about getting into counterfeit, wants to check out the album? How would you describe counterfeit? Like, what do you need to know before jumping in?
What do you need to know? Oh God, that we're loud, that we're angry, that we're open, that we're honest, that we're inclusive, and that those things that you potentially push to the back of your mind that you think no one else feels, well, listen to the record, because there's sure as shit and stuff on there that I think a lot of people secretly feel.
All right, well, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Turn that off.